What I'd like to talk to you today a bit about is that hope. But that hope that we see coming into a market that's been completely decimated, right? You talk about crypto, you talk about just general sentiment and risk tolerance. And we are here because we see risk tolerance in the copper and gold and in the mining industry in general, I think, is less risk now because of the requirement. You get to a point where these are required minerals. We haven't invested in them long enough. We haven't explored for them long enough because we've been drastically underfunded in the industry. You see the decrease in volume on these exchanges is exceptional. That's a problem. And I think you're seeing majors start to identify that as they start to come into companies. So I want to talk to you about why I think Blackwolf fits that mold, but also just remember why you're here. You know, you're here to understand what each company brings and what the value proposition is. And I think I've got some value to show you in what we're doing here at Blackwolf. Cautionary statement. Don't need to read that. I'm going to put some forward-looking statements out. So what are the three pillars of Blackwolf, and why is it important? Well, what do you look for in junior mining companies? You look for leadership. You look for possibly a strategic investor, whether it's a major, whether it's a strong backer like we have with Frank Giustra. And you look at the projects. Not every project's going to turn out great. Not every project's the same. They're all high potential. One thing I'd like to start with on our projects is the Niblack project. That's a 6 million ton VMS deposit in Southeast Alaska on Tidewater. Has been around for quite some time. But what I like about this and what is unique about this is once we got our hands on it, we proved that it was not only highly expandable, but that we can do it and we've had success with it. Our last drill results out of this were a number of years ago, and they were fantastic. You were getting 5% plus copper over 7-8 meters plus 5 grams gold. Some of the past drilling results out of this were 44 meters of 2% copper and 3 grams gold. Those are very strong copper gold numbers. And it's definitely a reason why we're looking at Niblack as one of the big pillars in the future of Blackwolf. The Harry project's in sandwiched strategically between Ascot and Scotty Resources. Ascot's putting the Premier mine back into production. That was the highest grade producer in North America for years. This is in Stewart, BC, right in the Golden Triangle. That project has almost never been worked on until we got our hands on it. Optimum Ventures had it before us. What's unique about it, it was sitting under a glacier. The glaciers receded and opened up all these different occurrences. We hit a pretty darn good couple gold hits this year. Did a very small program, about 1,800 meters, and we're going to follow up on that. And our Cantu property, Southeast Alaska, very, very greenfield, undiscovered, big potential there, but greenfield, directly across from the mine being put back into production, which is Premier. So you kind of have this district scale going between Scotty and Ascot with the Harry and the Cantu projects, but you have a standalone 6 million ton VMS deposit. How are we going to get it there? Well, our leadership. Andy Bowring's on our board. He's a very strong venture capitalist. He's raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, had much success with companies like American Lithium, Prime Mining. Very strategic member of our board. Rob McLeod, born and raised in the Stewart area, third generation miner. Rob has an exceptional knowledge of the geology in that area. One of the best, I'd say, in the industry in many different facets. And Frank Giustra, one of the founders of Goldcorp. He's our main backer, 13.2%. I think he just bought another 1 million shares on Friday, as he said he filing says. So we have that pillar. We have that strong backing by Frank Giustra. We have about $5.5 million in the till right now. And let's go and figure out why and what is going to create the value here. Well, let's start with Niblack. One of the big things in the Golden Triangle is working in the winter. It snows a lot. They were snowmobiling up there in October. We didn't even see snow till last week. So it definitely gives you a bit of pause. Well, what's unique about Niblack is the position. It's in Southeast Alaska on Tidewater, fully developed, production size underground, 6 million ton resource. High-grade copper, just about 1% in the resource, about 1.8 grams gold, zinc, and silver. We believe that resource can be expanded significantly because that resource lives in the area called the Lookout Zone and a little bit in the Trio Zone. These VMS deposits often have up to 7 different lenses. We started parsing through the data recently when I joined the company about 6, 8, 9 months ago now. We started to put together what we believe is a near-term plan to get back out there. Having a fully developed underground, we can get in there during all weathers. You know, we're not now limited by weather changes and patterns. It's right on tidewater. What's unique about the data that we've parsed through is, you know, these are in the box 30-year-old drill logs, and we found that they've actually done drilling at Dama and they've done drilling at Lindsay. And it was interesting because those were high-grade copper back in the day. Nobody cared about copper. So, you know, copper was low, price was low, they stopped. Now we're going to go back there and we're going to show the expandability and how big we can make this. We're looking to get out there in the near term here, Q1, Q2, and we'll be talking to the market about that very shortly. So catalyst coming up over and over and over. That's the plan at Niblack. There's the resource. As you can see where the underground is, we've only drilled up. The resource is up. So highly expandable down along strike. What we found is that this used to be on what we call an anticline. The understanding of it. Now it's in a syncline. And when we tested it, the last time we drilled it, we proved that. So now we have high-grade results from the last time we drilled. We have a ton of new data on this, and we're fully funded to go back out there and start showing that we can expand on this significantly. What we've done, and I'm going to talk probably one more minute about Niblack and then the rest here, is that we've entered into what we call an MOU. We're looking at doing a unique hub and spoke model. So what that means for us is instead of us building a mill, we look at how we join with other companies that are local. We barge to a central point that is owned by a private company right now that's fully permitted. Unbuilt, yet fully permitted. And anyone that's been in this space for a fair amount of time, you know, permitting in Canada and in the US can take significant time, you know, 10 plus years. Having a site that is fully permitted with an unbuilt mill is a huge step forward and a huge advantage to what we believe we can do with Niblack on the economic side, but also on what we do with the expansion and how we feed this potential mill site. So that study's pushing forward. We finished phase 1. We're going into phase 2, which includes all the companies listed there in Dolly Varden as well. But that study is really going to define how big you need to make a project. You know, sometimes you need to make it huge to make the economics work. If we have a centralized processing plant, you now have a quicker path and a lot more cost effective. We can use the money that we have in the treasury to expand it to the point it needs to be, not the point we want it to be. A little bit on the Harry project. We made a pretty darn good gold discovery here on the northern tip of the property. 312 grams gold in the same hole, another 277 gram gold hit. Altogether about 589 gram meter hit. That was done in October, I believe. Followed up with 6 more holes. Got a lot more geological data out of it. It's a very, very high grade area. This is south of Bruce Jack, the sandwich between what you see between Scotty Resources and Ascot. This is a very high grade district. Scotty Resources, tons of high grade coming out of there. Ascot, if you follow them, going back into production, but also still doing drilling. You're seeing, again, significant grades coming out of this entire area. Bruce Jack just up the road, sold for $3.6 billion. So this area is well known to create big, high-grade mines, some of the highest grade in the world. And having people like Rob McLeod, who knows this area very well, and having cash to as well to drill that this year, we don't need to go to the market for a significant amount of time. So we can catalyst starting very soon. Let's go to
1 minute.
Yeah, a little bit on Cantu. It's one of these projects that, you know, you see these outcropping veins. We drilled it with 2 holes this year. We got a lot of geological information out of that, and I'm not a geologist. My background is more mine building. I spent my time with Freeport in Indonesia and Rio Tinto in Mongolia and put a mine into production in Africa. But what I like about these types of, you know, potentials, let's call it, is that once you drill it for the first time, you now know where you're looking. Until you stick that drill in the ground, you don't. So we got a lot of data out this year. We will be targeting another program, but first we'll be targeting Niblack due to the high-grade nature and our new understanding of that. Share structure, 122 million shares out. I think we're trading at about 14 cents, 13 and a half. Frank upped his position significantly. Insiders have been buying. But again, key, we don't need to go to the market. We have a ton of catalysts coming out of not only our Niblack project, our Harry project, and we have an execution path forward. Thank you.